So before I declared my independence from the two-party system, I worked for the Democrats. I was a content creator for Hillary Clinton in 2016. I was on the road with her and wrote, directed, and edited digital and broadcast advertisements for the campaign. But then I started to see something.
A major political firestorm
leaked DNC emails showing an effort to undermine Bernie Sanders during the primaries.
After what the DNC did to Senator Sanders during the primary, I resigned in disgust. So then I went into sort of a political purgatory. I knew the MAGA movement appealed to some of our darkest inclinations, and that certainly wasn't for me. But the Democrats had completely lost their way. They became more interested in political control than care for the middle class.
I think there needs to be a profound change in the way the Democratic Party does business. It is not good enough to have a liberal elite. I come from the white working class, and I am deeply humiliated that the Democratic Party cannot talk to the people from where I came from.
So I spent the next few years in and out of the Catskill Mountains, producing a film about the tension between the political elites in New York City and the surrounding blue-collar towns. I learned that a lot of the folks that voted for Trump were angry at Democrats for completely abandoning them. Trump was promising to break things, and the people that were struggling in this country wanted them broken. After that experience of talking to people for years, I pretty much wrote off politics forever.
If you'd asked me a year ago if I would be involved in a political campaign, I would have thought you were crazy.
But then I found out one of my mentors, Charles Eisenstein, was working for Bobby's campaign. Charles is a brilliant, sort of renegade philosopher. Definitely not your typical political operative. So I was too curious, I had to reach out. Who is this Bobby Kennedy guy?
Yeah, I can't really do him justice in 1 minute, but just go look him up, listen to a couple of interviews. He's definitely something new in the political landscape. It's not what you're expecting.
So I did. I pored over interviews and read a ton of the science papers that Mr. Kennedy references. And at that point, I was curious enough to want to put a face to the name, so I went on the road with him for a while. I went to the Lahaina disaster site with him. I visited the southern border and spoke with Border Control about the humanitarian crisis there. And I observed how deeply he listened to the East Palestine families who were suffering from dioxin exposure. Now, I've been sober for over 17 years, and I still attend recovery meetings every week. And so naturally, I started to go to meetings with him.
HD reported that Senator Kennedy had been shot.
I started doing heroin when I was 15 years old, and then I did it without my own permission for 14 years. I knew that I wanted to have a spiritual awakening because I did not want to be out on the street white-knuckling it and, struggling with the impulse.
And at those meetings, I saw a deeply, deeply spiritual man. I found a man that was incredibly dedicated to the principles of recovery. It made sense to me that he was one of the first public figures willing to come out against the Trump-Biden lockdowns.
And put in place the first federally mandated quarantine in over 50 years.
I disagreed with him on some issues, but my dissent was embraced. Healthy conflict is vastly underestimated in our culture. It's what molded his personal Declaration of Independence. And it's why after being on the road with him for a year and seeing what I've seen, I absolutely believe him when he says he will create a unity government
as president with appointees from every major political party and from outside all the parties.
It's important for all of us to know that unity means freeing ourselves from a two-party system that is entrenched in corporate corruption. Both parties are designed to create gridlock in Congress because it allows those billionaires to speculate more accurately.
I think a Biden win, the Republicans retaining control of the Senate, is the best possible scenario for stock.
We've lived with gridlock really since 2010. For markets, that lends a lot of stability.
If you want to know why so many of us are leaving the two-party system and joining Kennedy, go to Kennedy24.com to learn more about him. Thank you so much.